Over the years, you've heard me ask wealth manager Warren Ingram the big questions. How do we invest wisely? How do we protect our family's future? All those conversations, that entire library of financial expertise is now available as a podcast. Straightforward advice to help you build your wealth on demand. Just search for Warren Ingram's Personal Finance wherever you get your podcasts.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
702.
So we start a conversation now with the SACP Secretary General Solly Mapaila. As you know, the SACP has contested its first election since it resolved to no longer contest under the ANC banner. The party contested Ward 13 in Polokwane just last week after the ward became vacant. And the SACP, you'll remember, resolved to contest the 2026 local government elections independently, which is a decision that could have some serious implications for its alliance partners. If you look at how the ANC has already started responding to this decision by the SACP. So let's welcome now Solly Mapaila to the show, who is going to be with us this hour. You're welcome to join this conversation as well. You can call on 011-883-0702. You can send your WhatsApps as well on 072-702-1702. Solly, thank you so much for making time for us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Clement, and good morning to our listeners as well.
Yeah, let me start maybe with current affairs, something that happened yesterday. One of your leaders in the SACP, Buti Manamela, being promoted is essentially to Minister of Higher Education. He has served as the Deputy Minister for a while under different ministers. He is now the Minister of Higher Education. The President has removed Nobuhle Nkabani. Let me get your reaction to that as the SACP.
First, we think that it was important for the appointment of Comrade Buti Manamela. It has long been overdue. He's a competent young comrade, now even in his middle age now. All his peers were promoted and he was overlooked despite his capabilities. And I think it will show off what he's made of, what we have trained him to be as a competent young revolutionary. So we really wish him well in this new tenure in Higher Education and Training Ministry.
Yeah. I want us to start also with what happened last week. As the SACP, you fielded your candidate in the election and you decided to contest Ward 13 in Polokwane. Just explain to us how that went, number one. And number two, how are you managing that decision to contest the 2026 elections with the African National Congress?
That decision to contest Ward 13 in Polokwane was very important and symbolic decision because it had no impact on the reconstitution of council. But it was important that given that we've taken this decision, when our structures are saying or are ready to go to the ballot, we should not prevent them. And our comrades in Polokwane, in Seshego, in Ward 13 decided that they are ready to contest. And albeit symbolic, it was important for us to accept that, partly also because this matter was not fully tested within the framework of the alliance in the ongoing discussions, because we have now reaffirmed our decision to contest elections with or without the reconfiguration of the alliance. And this electoral process will itself be a component of reconfiguration of the alliance. So it was an important aspect for us. And we want to congratulate our comrades that stood up to contest in this ballot, even though under serious pressure from within the ranks of our movement, because there's been a lot of distortions about this decision of the SACP from within some elements inside the alliance.
So you received like around 1% or so of the vote in that by-election. Are you saying that contesting that ward was more symbolic? Does that then explain your performance in that ward? And how do you plan on rebuilding electoral credibility and gain voter confidence?
Well, symbolism of it was that it had no meaning in the outcome or reconstitution of council. Whether we won the ward or not, the council was going to remain the same. Critical, it's when, for instance, we missed to contest Tabazimbi municipality, which was the entire municipality going back for elections in in December 2024. That would have been much more strategic. But to the extent that it was the first time we were contesting after the reaffirmation of our National Congress decision to contest elections with or without the reconfiguration of the alliance, and as well as the reaffirmation by our Special National Congress, it was strategic in that sense. So it allowed members of the Communist Party across the country to know that they are free to contest the next by-election that may arise in any of their municipality if they so wish. But it also tests our structures from a point of independent electoral organization, because we've always participated under a broad framework of the alliance. So it was important, and we learned lessons. And we're not saying that we did not contest to win, but for us, the main issue, also given the nature of the ward, it was important that our comrades entered that particular ward specifically.
And what impressions are you getting from that? Do you think that this is generally what people have a view towards the SACP, or do you think that the circumstances were different here? That's why you would get about 1% of the vote. And of course, there are more established parties that have been contesting that ward for a long time, which have come out, tops, so to speak. But there are other circumstances that are exceptional, where there are parties like the MK party that have, for instance, gone and contested some wards for the first time, and they still somehow managed to get some substantial support. So my question is, given that you got 1% here, I mean, that's still a barometer of sorts that helps you gauge support on the ground. What's your assessment following this outcome of this election?
Well, you see, Clement, local government election is different. It responds largely to local dynamics and local issues. And in that particular ward specifically, you will notice that it's a highly contested ward. The section where our candidate came from, it's a section of the Scotter camp, largely the section of the Scotter camp, but it embodies some components in the township. The issues of services are quite big. And also the response of various organizations, take for instance the economic freedom fighters in that area, and what they've done previously, I think we must commend them. They've done wonderful things. For instance, they managed to get the community a borehole. That area, the people do not have water in the section of the Scotter camp. So they managed to organize them a borehole, which was important. And therefore, when our comrades who reside in that particular community are raising other issues that are related to services and connecting them with the interventions of established parties, in this case, like the EFF, create a special dynamic in that particular community. So if you go to a different township or a different area, the results will be quite different. And I think that's why in other upcoming by-elections, for instance, it will be different. It will be tested on the basis of local dynamics and the issues at hand. In this case, for instance, it was not whether because that community has been abandoned by their traditional party that they voted over the years. It was precisely because there was a by-election, and therefore they reaffirmed their previous party. So we're aware about those, but across the country, the dynamics are different from one area to the other. So it's not the ultimate barometer of what will be our own performance. And in any case, as you know, we also entered this race quite late. We reaffirmed the position of our candidate quite late. Mm-hmm. And we don't have even the resources that other parties have in this instance. So we are purely on the platform of politics, affirmation of principles, and what we stand for. That's what is important. Yeah. That the organization of that community and the work that we continue to do in that community becomes important. And in other communities as well, becomes important going forward.
What's your bigger vision as the SACP? Because this then not change the dynamics within the ANC led alliance? How do you see the SACP as a truly independent political party outside the ANC? Do you have a goal to one day govern independently?
Of course, there's no party without the intentions to govern. But to the extent that in South Africa, we have appreciated that the robustness of ideological politics is too low. The general domination of bourgeois parties, it's much more accepted, largely because of the dominance of the capitalist system in our country. So the general trends, the cultures, mannerisms, and behaviors, and so forth are largely adaptive to capitalist behavior or bourgeois tendencies. So we need to mature politics and to understand what strategic interventions are necessary. And I think we can appreciate that the bourgeois parties in power today have run out of ideas about how to solve societal problems. It is in this context that we see our role, how to recalibrate the political space in our country for people to deepen what we call people's democracy, not just bourgeois representative democracy, which has no response to the material living conditions of the people, the deepening crisis of poverty, inequalities, high cost of living. But there's parliament, there's this, we can even look at parliamentary legislation, largely bourgeois legislation favoring the corporates, not favoring the poor. These are the dynamics that entering this particular space will force even our traditional ally, the ANC, to do right by the people. Because in the current form, they put issues on the table with competing parties on bourgeois competition, capitalist competition, not on competition on how to serve best the interests of the people, how to legislate properly to respond to the current crisis in our country, despite the richness that our country has. It is in that context that we think that we can play a critical role, because in some instances, we have not lacked ideas to present within the framework of the alliance. But those ideas have just been ignored. And to the extent that we have handed over all our power in the hands of the ANC in government, they've then went on to undermine that power, do things as they wish in their own way, disregards our core ideas and the interests of the class that we represent, the majority of the people, the working class. So it is in this context that we have seen how they have also respected smaller parties that they engage with, even in the GNU than their allies, that we really felt that the working class must have its own voice. So participating in this regard will be filling that void of pure working class voice, and even in any further engagement, those engagement will be on the basis of the interests of the working class, not on general basis that we are an ally.
There is a critique, though. There are those that argue that contesting independently weakens the left by splitting the alliance vote. So what's your view on the concerns that this decision could indirectly strengthen your so-called right-wing or neoliberal forces in South Africa?
The ANC itself is implementing a liberal ideology. So there's no difference now ideologically when in running the economy between the ANC and the DA and other right-wing forces. The only thing is the historical positioning of those parties. I mean, you can look into the recent national conference of the ANC, which reaffirmed that the trajectory of our economy will be to bring in competition in the network industries. In other words, to bring in the private sector role in the critical services sectors like water, sanitation, electricity, telecommunication, transportation, and all of those, energy. And these are critical areas of development. They're the anchors of development. So the ANC has recommitted itself to this kind of trajectory, which actually sells the soul of public representative, because now the corporates who are not represented in parliament will be the ones driving the key trajectories of economic development, and they are unaccountable. And to the extent that there are failures in that regard, we collectively get to be blamed. So this notion, it's from the sections of individuals who have no clue about current politics or ideological politics, who are just running with the current. And some even within our own movement, including some inside the Communist Party, who are just happy to sell their soul for as long as their personal interests are taken care of. So we are dealing with that. We are also purifying ourselves in that space so that we are clear about what we represent and what are we in alliance with. We're not in an alliance with a neoliberal organization. We're in alliance with a broad movement, progressive movement, a working class bias, but that working class biasness has gone. How do we reclaim that when we are not represented in the political power space? So, and they continue to do things with other right-wing parties in the name of all of us and in the name of our people. When the people continue to suffer, it is in that regard that those with that argument are really misplaced to the real politics in our country.
Okay.
I'll give you an example, Clement, without taking too long. There's a party that, for instance, AIC at one point, when they got Ekurhuleni in the 2016 local government elections, they got 1% in the Ekurhuleni municipality. And for the ANC to work with them, they demanded that the ANC must implement a position of building a road connecting Matatiele and Lesotho, a 40-kilometer road. And they followed to do it, but we can't demand such kind of a thing even for interventions in a community, despite that we are in the alliance, precisely because we have no political power in any municipality or anywhere else to bargain with, apart from the reassurance of the leadership that we are within the framework of the alliance.
Okay, I want us to talk more about that. What kind of leverage would this give you after the latest in Eyewitness News headlines? It's 28 minutes after 10 o'clock.
Over the years, you've heard me ask Wealth Manager Warren Ingram the big questions. How do we invest wisely? How do we protect our family's future? All those conversations, that entire library of financial expertise is now available as a podcast. Straightforward advice to help you build your wealth on demand. Just search for Warren Ingram's Personal Finance wherever you get your podcasts.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
7:02. Let's walk the talk.
10:33. We're in conversation with Solly Mapaila, who is the General Secretary of the South African Communist Party. Let's start with your inputs that are coming through. Let's start with this WhatsApp voice note, in fact.
Hi, Clement, the team. Clement, my question to Mr. Mapaila is, let's say you get voted into power. Which economic model will you adopt? Will you go for socialism or for capitalism, and why? Do you think the problem is the economic model or the implementation of the economic model? David.
All right. Thank you, David, for that question. Another question, Solly, from Matlodi says, Clement, what's happening there? Your discussion seems to be way above me as an ordinary listener. Ask Solly there, what should happen to the SACP members, beneficiaries, those who are occupying ministerial positions? Why allow them to form part of a government that the SACP feels that it's failed? And then the other question is from Floyd, who says, Clement, how many party members does the SACP have? What makes them think that they'll govern South Africa? What do they really stand for? This party is about delusions of grandeur. They would be a non-entity if they were not riding on the back of the ANC. Solly?
No, thank you very much, Clement, for those questions. The first one regarding the model that will implement, we're a socialist organization. We'll certainly opt for a socialist transition of our economy. In other words, we'll transfer economic power to the hands of the people. The key critical instruments of our economy will be in the hands of the people. At the moment, they are controlled by corporates and those that are within the public sector. The public sector has commissioned them out to capital. Hence, things that could be done at 40% of the cost, they now cost us 100% because of this, a lot of tendering process in between. So we will bring in people-centered governance, people-led economic process, and not follow the current trajectory of economic development. In other words, we will look into the source of the problem. That's the major difference between us and the current political parties, is that they prescribe existing problems and not deal with the source. So we'll deal with the source. In other words, we'll implement the political economy of socialism, which traces the origin of the problem and dealing with the source of the problem to avoid such a problem to appear in the future. And of course, in this regard, when we will test ourselves to the masses and let the masses have the options. Those who think that over the years, because we have contributed in the liberation of our country in many important platforms of our struggle through the African National Congress or independently but publicly led by the African National Congress, doesn't mean that we have not existed. In fact, it's also lack of understanding history. Because in the past we have contested party positions. We had members in parliament, members in council. Before the apartheid regime banned us in 1950 through the Suppression of Communism Act, we were the first organization in this country to be banned by the apartheid regime because they feared the power of socialism, the power of the people, the power of the entire economy in the hands of the people, the power of inclusive society, of non-racialism. So it is in this regard that those who banned us over the years have now re-emerged on the basis of maintaining status quo. We will deal away with the current status quo in which the majority are impoverished in the country of plenty, like South Africa.
But your support back then was never tested, right? Your support back then was never tested through elections. And I suppose the question the listener was asking is, you have been riding on the back of the ANC. You are going to become a non-entity should you start defining yourself outside of this alliance.
No, it's impossible. It can never be like that. In fact, the point I was trying to make, since 1994, we only contested Metsimaholo municipality at one point. And we did quite well there. We had 3 councillors, including the mayor, by the way. Comrade Lindy were the late. But the issue is that prior that, before 1994 and before the banning of the Communist Party, we had contested elections in this country. We had members of parliament. That's why if you go to the records of parliament, you'll see the filibustering process that laid bare the entire Communist Manifesto, which was recorded in parliament despite the distortions by the apartheid government later on, even at local government level. But since 1994, we decided to be behind the African National Congress. And there were reasons for that. One of the reasons was that if the movement does not follow a liberal path of development, will remain supporting the African National Congress. That if the liberation movement itself does not degenerate into chaos, into ill discipline, will continue to support the African National Congress. And I think everyone in the country can see how we are all brushed, painted in the same brush by society on the basis of our participation in government through the African National Congress. Every corruption takes all of us, despite that we led the massive campaign against corruption. And I think one of the biggest problems for South Africans is a lack of proper memory in many instances, particularly this commentariat. We led the campaign that also established the state capture inquiry, for instance. We called it an inquiry into corporate capture of the state. At that time, we were looking at how capitalism has captured political power from the hands of the liberation movement, assimilated it to itself, corrupted political leadership, and corrupted politics, and also captured politics, as we now see in our country. We have general chaos in South African politics. So we debated this in 1993 before we decided to work within the framework of the ANC. And with this kind of chaos, we have to stand to be tested on the basis of our own ideology, morality, and what we stand for as communist.
So
that
there
will
was
be
a question
tested by
also
the masses.
about why are you allowing your leaders to be part of a government that you have described as having failed. You've just congratulated Buti Manamela, who has now been promoted to Minister of Higher Education. These are members of the SACP. If you so truly believe that this government has failed, why are you then accepting deployments, your members, your leaders accepting deployments to serve in the same failed government?
Look, I think this issue have responded to it many a times. We are in an alliance at the moment with the African National Congress. Even last year, 2024 elections, we participated collectively as the alliance, as we're defeated in these recent elections. We're defeated together. So the mandate is still a collective mandate. So to that extent, we will continue to play our part within the mandate that we garnered through the African National Congress, that we mobilize South Africans. I crisscross the country, for instance, in the campaign for the African National Congress. Why, therefore, should we leave the outcome of our own sweat? So that's the point. The issue is, will Buti degenerate to do the wrong things, or will he improve quality of service in the new appointment? That's the point. So to the extent that we have people who are serving there under the ambit of the alliance, we'll continue to support those comrades to do well and to do their best. But what we are saying to them is that they must not be captured by the aura of bureaucracy, by the aura of the PACs that are in office. That's why, as the leader of the Communist Party, when I was elected, I made a pledge at our Congress that I will not accept to go into government on the basis that I want those who are in government, both as members of the Communist Party and within the framework of the alliance, to account to the public and to account to the revolutionary promises that our people have made, or our movement has made to the people.
All right. Neo and Sizwe, I see your calls. I'll start with them after this. It's 17 before 11.
Over the years, you've heard me ask Wealth Manager Warren Ingram the big questions. How do we invest wisely? How do we protect our family's future? All those conversations, that entire library of financial expertise is now available as a podcast. Straightforward advice to help you build your wealth on demand. Just search for Warren Ingram's Personal Finance wherever you get your podcasts.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
7:02. Let's walk the talk.
15 minutes before 11 o'clock. Let's go to your calls as we continue this conversation with Solly Mapaila, who's the General Secretary of the South African Communist Party. Now, let's start with you in 4 ways. Good morning.
Good morning, Mutengisi.
Sure.
I just want to know from Solly Mapaila, since the fall of the communism, in particular the Warsaw Pact countries, and the only remaining communism is Cuba, North Korea, and China, and the other two that I've just mentioned, the last two are like literally battling, and the only one that is strong is China. The naming of the current your name of your party, South African Communist Party, is it still relevant? That's number one. Number two, in terms of the politics of the day, given the communism, did you still see it like playing a role in the South African society? Because I personally think that looking at the world over, I think it's the politics of the past, and help me to understand your politics. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for that question, Neo. I'll get Solly to respond. Let's hear from Sizwe as well. Sizwe in Pimville, Soweto. Good morning.
Morning, Clement. How are you?
Go ahead, brother. I'm good, thank you.
Yes, mine is just a comment. I simply want to put it straightforward. Number one, the South African Communist Party is an ANC front. It will continue to be an ANC front. The rhetoric that Mr. Mapaila is delivering is in fact just buying the faces of people. There's never been a true communist party in South Africa. Never. And Mapaila and his entourage are not communists. They wear designer clothes, they drive designer cars, they live flashy lifestyles, and they flash even their wealth and all that in the face of the public. Then they call themselves a communist. There's never been a communist party.
So a communist is supposed to be poor, Sizwe? A communist must be poor and Are you suggesting
Not
a
necessarily.
communist must be poor? What are you suggesting? So anybody who may
not
be in the middle
necessarily.
class or upper wouldn't represent interests of...
Yeah, I mean, dealing with I would call a level society, a society that has no status, is upper class, lower class, and whatever class. That would be a communist milieu. In essence. But there's a lot to it than simply a classless society.
Oh, okay. Sizwe Mpimville, thank you. Solly?
Yeah, well, I think sometimes when we deal with people like Sizwe, well, let me say, it's generalizing too much. And people like him are not worthy of a debate, really. It's a waste of time and energy. He lies to his... what he described is not what I am, for instance, as an example, and I represent the Communist Party. So this generalization in the context of debate is foolishness, actually. So it's not worth of a debate. But look, even when he speaks about particular countries like China, there's this tendency within the bourgeois framework to take away the success of socialism in China, despite what the Chinese are saying every day, that they're building socialism. They're constructing it, and it's getting successful, and it's competing better with capitalism. It's even surpassing capitalism, particularly in the development of productive capacity and resources. So much that the response by America, for instance, is chasing the success of a socialist order in China. They've ended poverty. There's still millions of people who sleep on the streets with no houses, with no food, with no health care in the US. So when you have a debater like this, it's not a debater, it's an insult thrower. So it's not worth it, really, for a public discussion. But with regard to what we stand for is to serve society, and we're not a front of anybody. And to try and say all our contributions, the sacrifices, should be erased by the comments of one individual for whatever his own disappointment, or whether it's a capitalist stooge or anything, doesn't erase history. And that's the fact. So we will stand principles and will continue to fight along moral and ethical basis to represent our society and to make sure that the masses of our people are the primary beneficiaries of our economy in order to improve their lives. And if in the improvement of their life we can reach an egalitarian society, a society of equals, that's a society that we say will have created the primary stage of socialism. Then we can then fully move on from that society to transfer the ultimate ownership of power of the economy to the people as a whole. In other words, the ownership of the means of production.
Okay, after the break, I would like to get your thoughts on the decision, well, at least the calls that have been made from within the ANC for a ban on the SACP's members' participation in ANC elections preparations. Isn't that fair, because you are now challenging them and contesting elections? I'll get your response and come with some more WhatsApp voice notes that have come through after this.
Over the years, you've heard me ask Wealth Manager Warren Ingram the big questions. How do we invest wisely? How do we protect our family's future? All those conversations, that entire library of financial expertise is now available as a podcast. Straightforward advice to help you build your wealth on demand. Just search for Warren Ingram's Personal Finance wherever you get your podcasts.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
7:02.
8 minutes before 11 o'clock. Yeah, Solly, let's get your response to whether you think it's fair for these calls that have been made from within the ANC that SACP members' participation in ANC elections preparations, there should be a ban on that, so they shouldn't attend that because you are contesting elections and you are basically competing with the same organizations, and it would be unfair to have you sit in ANC elections preparations when you have your own elections preparations to contest. Do you think that's fair?
Firstly, Clement, I love this question because it has confused many people at the top leadership level of the African National Congress, starting with the officials. But that shows the quality of leadership that we have. The alliance, the primary constitution of this alliance is dual membership. And that drives a common agenda, the national democratic revolution. So when the ANC does that, it prevents its own members from participating in its own structures. But in this regard, we were the first to say, now that we are preparing our own and establishing our own institutions on local government elections, we should not be participating in the general elections framework of the alliance because we're running an independent campaign.
Oh, so you made the suggestion?
Yes, we made a suggestion first. And we then said to our comrades, in this contest, because some of our members serve in both executive committees and therefore are required by those executive structures to do their duties on the platform of elections. We said those who are holding positions in the party and are in the ANC and are working in the party on elections must declare in the ANC that I've been appointed to deal with this thing. Take, for instance, Comrade Manyathela is the head of our elections machinery going to 2024, for instance, and the ANC is aware about that. So he's a member of the ANC National Elections team. But he was there representing the Communist Party, but he's also a member of the ANC National Executive Committee. So we say we can't hide the fact that he's running our elections team. He still is, even now, as we speak. He's still in charge of our national elections team. So we say to the ANC, he's our leader. We have deployed him in this duty. But if you want to plan something that may bring confusion, that is something that may not advance the framework of the national democratic revolution, you can decide whatever you want to say. The problem we have had with them acting in this way is that they then invited our comrades, for instance, our comrades in Mpumalanga, where I am now on the People's Red Caravan. Our comrades then tells them that, no, we have established our own structures. Please allow us not to participate. They insist that they must come. When they're in the meeting, then they say, go. Then why do you do that? I mean, that's shallowness of leadership. It's disrespectful. And when they treat our comrades like that, they must know they are also damaging themselves because of this dual membership concept.
All right. Here are some voice notes that have also come through.
Hi, Clement. Hope you're well. So, Clement, do they still remain part of the tripartite alliance? Please clarify that, or it's going to be a dual alliance now?
It's always been dual. The people who've got dual membership, but as he has said, they do remain part of the ANC's alliance.
Good morning, Clement. I think it is too late for the SACP to think that they can exist without the ANC. This alliance benefits them more than ANC. So they must just stop what they are doing and swallow their pride. Thank you very much. Peter Maila Machaba from Letswata.
Yeah. Solly, as we wrap up, how do you plan on protecting your members from, I suppose some are calling it political purging, because the ANC has suggested that those with dual membership may need to be excluded from future government deployments?
Clement, first is that to reaffirm that we remain part of the alliance. It's not ANC alliance. It's the alliance constitutive of the ANC, SACP, COSATU, and SANCO. We are not joining the ANC. We are independent formations, but are interdependent in the alliance. But have accepted that the ANC, given its broadness, should take societal leadership on behalf of the alliance. But when it does so, it must implement the collective decisions of our societal transformation in order to transform our lives from the poor ones, from apartheid, segregation, to a non-racial and prosperous society. And we're not beginning to see that. We're seeing that waning. And the issues that are important for us have been sidelined. That's the critical question. So if the ANC purges members of the Communist Party, They are paging themselves. We have got less than 1% of our members who are not holding ANC membership, of over 350,000 party members. So they'll be actually damaging themselves. So that's why this question doesn't require arrogance, like what the ANC displayed over the years, over 22 years of internal discussions, and the recent leadership last year having a take it or leave it kind of posture. But when we sign up for what 13, they clamor for meetings to say, but no, you guys are serious. Yes, we are serious. We are going to contest. And that's why the Congress, our 15th Congress that elected me as General Secretary, they gave me this mandate. And this mandate is reaffirmed by our Special National Congress. I can't even change it. So they want us to change this thing. They also do not believe. And I think that if you look at the majority of the ANC generation now, the top leaders, they have not been long in the ANC to understand the independence of alliance components. So that's part of the problem. But we'll solve that in politics. We'll remain in alliance with progressive forces in this country. We'll widen also the broad front and broad movement so that we can regain the transformation agenda in our country.
All right. Solly Mapaila, General Secretary of the South African Communist Party. Thank you for chatting to us this morning.
Over the years, you've heard me ask Wealth Manager Warren Ingram the big questions. How do we invest wisely? How do we protect our family's future? All those conversations, that entire library of financial expertise is now available as a podcast. Straightforward advice to help you build your wealth on demand. Just search for Warren Ingram's Personal Finance wherever you get your podcasts.